Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins All World, coin enthusiasts. Today, we're diving into the world of US coins, and we've got a true gem to explore, the 1964 Jefferson Nickel. This small, yet historically rich coin, may not look like much at first glance, but wait until you hear about its fascinating backstory and the value it could hold. Stick around because you might just find out that your collection could include a coin worth more than you think. Let's take a trip back in time to 1964. The 1960s were a period of significant change in America. The country was in the middle of the civil rights movement, the space race was heating up, and social shifts were sweeping across the nation. Meanwhile, the U.S. Mint was busy producing coins, and the Jefferson Nickel was one of the prominent pieces in circulation. Since its introduction in 1938, the Jefferson Nickel has been a staple of American currency, bearing the likeness of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States. The 1964 Jefferson Nickel is particularly noteworthy for a couple of reasons. For one, 1964 was the final year that the U.S. Mint issued coins with silver content. That's right, the Jefferson Nickel from this year is made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, but there was still some silver involved, as a portion of the coin's composition included silver content, making it a unique piece in the world of coin collecting. But here's where things get really interesting. The 1964 Jefferson Nickel has some unusual characteristics that set it apart from other coins of its era. Most importantly, there were some minor minting errors that were made during this year's production, and these errors make the 1964 Jefferson Nickel a highly desirable coin for collectors today. Let's talk about what those errors are and why they can increase the value of this coin dramatically. For starters, the 1964 Jefferson Nickel has a known minting flaw called the double die obverse. This occurs when the die that stamps the design of the coin is misaligned during the striking process, resulting in a doubled image on the coin's design. When looking at the obverse side of the coin, which features Jefferson's profile, you might notice that the date and Liberty inscription appear twice, giving the coin a distinct and rare look. Double die errors are a favorite among collectors because they make the coin unique. No two coins with this error are identical. Another key feature that makes the 1964 Jefferson Nickel so valuable is its condition. Just like any other coin, the better the condition, the more valuable it is. Uncirculated 1964 Jefferson Nickels, coins that have not been used in everyday transactions, can fetch a pretty penny on the market. A coin that's in mint state condition could potentially be worth far more than a coin that has been heavily circulated, so if you happen to have one of these pristine examples, you're in luck. However, the real value comes from the more rare variants and those that have the double die error. While most 1964 Jefferson Nickels are relatively easy to find in circulation today, coins with minting flaws or errors are in a league of their own. A double die obverse in great condition can significantly raise the value of the coin, and with collectors always on the lookout for such errors, the demand for these nickels continues to climb. But it's not just minting errors that make this coin valuable, the metal content plays a role as well. The 1964 Jefferson Nickel, with its unique alloy, can actually be worth more for its metal content than its face value. Nickel and copper are valuable metals, and as the prices of raw materials fluctuate, coins like the 1964 nickel that contain these metals become more desirable. Let's move on to the design of this iconic coin. On the obverse, we see the profile of Thomas Jefferson, designed by artist Felix Schlag. Jefferson's profile has remained a constant feature of the coin for decades. The reverse side of the 1964 Jefferson Nickel features Monticello, the beautiful home of Thomas Jefferson located in Virginia. The Monticello design has also been used since the coin's inception in 1938, serving as a tribute to Jefferson's architectural genius and his legacy. Now, the big question on everyone's mind is, just how much is this coin worth? Well, it's not just about finding a random 1964 Jefferson Nickel in your pocket change. The value of these coins depends on their rarity, condition, and whether they have any minting errors like the double die obverse. The price range for a standard 1964 Jefferson Nickel is generally modest, but once you factor in minting errors or coins in unusual condition, the value can skyrocket. And now for the moment you've been waiting for, just how much could a 1964 Jefferson Nickel be worth today? Well, if you have one in near perfect condition, or if you've come across a double die error coin, it could be worth as much as $91,000. Yes, you heard that right. If you're lucky enough to own one of these rare, error-filled coins in great condition, you could be holding onto a coin that could fetch you $91,000 in the right market. It's no surprise that collectors are always on the lookout for these valuable pieces of US history. So, next time you're sorting through your change, take a closer look at those nickels. A 1964 Jefferson nickel could be more valuable than you ever imagined. Whether it's the unique minting errors or the condition of the coin, there's a lot of potential for this classic coin to become a rare treasure in your collection. Make sure you're keeping an eye out for those special nickels, because who knows, you might just stumble upon one of these incredibly valuable pieces of history. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into a coin that might just be hiding in your collection or possibly even in your pocket change, a coin that could be worth more than you ever imagined. Yes, we're talking about the 1971 Jefferson nickel. At first glance, it might seem like just another nickel, but there's a lot more to this coin than meets the eye. So stick around as we explore why this 1971 Jefferson nickel could be worth a small fortune. Now, the Jefferson nickel has been a staple of U.S. currency for decades. First introduced in 1938, the Jefferson nickel features the profile of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, on the obverse. On the reverse, you'll find an image of Monticello, Jefferson's famous home in Virginia. This design has become iconic in American coinage, and it remains unchanged for many years. But today, we're going to focus on the 1971 Jefferson nickel, a coin that was minted during an era of transition for the U.S. Mint. In 1971, the world was changing rapidly. The United States was moving into a new phase of its history, with the country coming out of the turbulence of the 1960s and facing new challenges in the 1970s. Politically, the nation was dealing with the aftermath of the Vietnam War, and socially, the civil rights movement was still fresh in the minds of many. Meanwhile, the U.S. Mint continued to produce coins to meet the demands of the growing economy, and the 1971 Jefferson nickel was one of the many coins issued that year. The 1971 Jefferson nickel was part of a regular issue in the United States coinage system, but there's something special about this year's edition that makes it stand out. Unlike many other coins from this era, the 1971 Jefferson nickel has several features that make it particularly interesting for coin collectors. Let's break it down. For starters, one of the key features that make the 1971 Jefferson nickel so interesting is its metal composition. At the time, the U.S. Mint was using a blend of 75% copper and 25% nickel for its coins. This composition was standard for the Jefferson nickel, and it gave the coin a distinct look and feel that collectors still recognize today. But it wasn't just the metal that was significant. The 1971 Jefferson nickel also marked a moment in history because it was part of the last few years before the U.S. Mint transitioned to producing coins with different alloy mixtures in the 1980s. This makes the 1971 Jefferson nickel a piece of history, representing a shift in U.S. coin production. But let's get into the really interesting part: value. What makes the 1971 Jefferson nickel so valuable? For starters, it's all about rarity. Although the 1971 Jefferson nickel was minted in large quantities, there's something about this specific coin that makes it stand out for collectors: the condition and any potential minting errors. Minting errors can happen from time to time, and when they do, they can significantly increase the value of a coin. A minor mistake during the minting process can lead to a unique feature, such as a misaligned die, doubling of letters or numbers, or even off-center strikes. These errors can make a coin extraordinarily rare, and because of that, they can fetch a much higher price on the market. For example, a 1971 Jefferson nickel that was mistakenly double-struck during production, or one with an off-center design, could be worth significantly more than a standard, uncirculated example. The rarity of minting errors is one of the driving factors behind the value of this coin, so if you happen to find a 1971 Jefferson nickel with any unusual features, you could have a highly valuable collector's item on your hands. Another factor that plays into the coin's value is its condition. Just like with any other collectible, the condition of the coin matters immensely. Coins that are in mint state, meaning they have been well preserved and show little to no signs of wear, will always command higher prices than coins that have been heavily circulated. So, if you come across a 1971 Jefferson nickel that looks like it just came from the US Mint, you could be in for a nice surprise when it comes to its value. Now, let's talk about the design itself. On the obverse, you'll find Thomas Jefferson's profile facing left, with the words Liberty above and the year of minting, 1971, below. Jefferson's calm and dignified portrait has been a constant feature of the coin, and it's something that collectors appreciate for its historical significance. The reverse side of the coin features Monticello, Jefferson's plantation home, designed by architect William Thornton. The Monticello design has been featured on the Jefferson nickel since its inception in 1938, and it represents a nod to Jefferson's legacy as a statesman, scholar, and architect. So, how much could a 1971 Jefferson nickel be worth? Now, keep in mind that most 1971 Jefferson nickels you come across in circulation won't fetch more than their face value. However, for coins in excellent condition, or those that exhibit minting errors or unique features, the price can skyrocket. For a mint state coin or one with a rare error, collectors are willing to pay a premium, sometimes reaching impressive numbers. And now for the moment you've been waiting for. Just how much could a 1971 Jefferson nickel be worth if you have one in top condition or with a minting flaw? Well, hold on to your hats, because if you're lucky enough to own one of these rare and well-preserved pieces, your coin could be worth a staggering $71,000. Yes, that's right, a 1971 Jefferson nickel with the right features or errors could be valued at a jaw-dropping $71,000. It's hard to believe that such a small, everyday coin could hold such incredible value, but it's true. So, next time you're rummaging through your coin collection, take a closer look at those 1971 Jefferson nickels. If you find one in great condition or with an error, you could be holding onto something truly valuable. Don't forget, collectors are always on the lookout for rare coins, and yours could be the next big find. Today, in this deep dive, we're going to explore a coin that might just be hiding in your collection, and you probably had no idea just how much it could be worth. Today, we're talking about the 1943 Jefferson nickel, a coin that, despite being almost 80 years old, has a fascinating history and a surprising value that might just make your jaw drop. If you thought nickels were just everyday change, think again. The 1943 Jefferson nickel was minted during one of the most intense periods in American history. The world was entrenched in World War II, and the U.S. was heavily involved in the war effort. As many of you might know, during this time, there were significant changes in the materials used for coin production due to the scarcity of certain metals. The U.S. Mint had to adjust its coinage to meet the needs of the war, and the 1943 Jefferson nickel was one of the products of that shift. Before we get into the value of the 1943 Jefferson nickel, let's quickly talk about the coin's design. The Jefferson nickel, which was first introduced in 1938, was designed by Felix Schlag. On the obverse of the coin, you'll find the profile of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, looking to the left. Above him, you'll see the word Liberty, and at the bottom, the year of minting, 1943. The reverse features Monticello, the home of Jefferson in Virginia, which was also designed by Schlag. This design remained in place for many years, becoming one of the most iconic images in American coinage. However, the 1943 Jefferson nickel is no ordinary coin. In the midst of World War II, the U.S. Mint had to come up with ways to conserve copper for ammunition and other war-related uses. As a result, in 1942, the Mint began experimenting with different alloys for its coins, including the nickel. Most of the Jefferson nickels minted in 1943 were made of a composition of 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese, making them distinct from the typical 75% copper and 25% nickel blend used for regular nickels. The goal was to save on copper, which was in short supply due to wartime demand. Now, here's the interesting part. The 1943 Jefferson nickel was part of this wartime series, and although these nickels were produced in large numbers, their unique composition makes them quite special. But, there's a catch: some of the coins were struck with the wrong metal, and this is where things get really exciting for collectors. As you might expect, some 1943 Jefferson nickels were made with the original copper-nickel blend, not the experimental silver-manganese mixture. These errors are extremely rare, and they are highly prized by collectors. So, what makes this coin so valuable? It all comes down to rarity and condition. The error coins, those struck in the wrong metal, are some of the most sought-after coins in numismatic circles, and they can command astonishing prices on the market. Now, let's talk about the value of this coin. You might think, it's just a nickel, how much could it really be worth? Well, for the right 1943 Jefferson nickel, we're talking about serious money. A 1943 nickel, especially one in excellent condition or with a minting error, can fetch tens of thousands of dollars in the right auction or sale. In fact, if you happen to have a 1943 Jefferson nickel that was mistakenly made with the wrong metal composition or one in pristine condition, you could be looking at a staggering $87,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $87,000 for a coin that was once just part of everyday change. Imagine that, you're holding a coin that was minted almost 80 years ago, a piece of American history, and it could be worth $87,000 today. That's the incredible potential that the 1943 Jefferson nickel holds. Now, let's talk a little bit about how you can identify a valuable 1943 Jefferson nickel. The key here is checking the metal composition and examining the coin closely for any signs of error. If you have a 1943 nickel, check for any unusual weight or look for coins that seem slightly off-center or different in color. If your 1943 Jefferson nickel has a composition of silver, then it's likely one of the rare, error-struck coins that collectors are desperate to get their hands on. Coins with the wrong composition can sometimes have a slightly different tone or sheen compared to those with the standard alloy. If you're not sure about the composition, you can take your coin to a professional numismatist or a local coin shop for an evaluation. In terms of condition, the grade of the coin plays a massive role in its value. Coins that are in uncirculated or mint state conditions, meaning they show little to no wear, with sharp details, are far more valuable than coins that have been heavily circulated. The grade of a coin is determined by the level of wear and tear, as well as how well the coin's features are defined. A coin that has been well preserved, with its original luster and crisp details, will command a much higher price than a worn or damaged coin. So, if you have a 1943 Jefferson nickel that looks as if it's barely been touched by time, you might want to check its composition and get it graded. You could be sitting on a small fortune, but, of course, the rarity of the 1943 Jefferson nickel doesn't end there. Even without a minting error, there's still significant value in these coins simply because of their historical context. These coins represent a unique moment in U.S. history, when the mint had to innovate to ensure that the country's coins remained functional and produced with minimal impact on the war effort. The 1943 Jefferson nickel is a fascinating reminder of the sacrifices and adaptations that the United States made during a time of global conflict. If you ever come across a 1943 Jefferson nickel, it's definitely worth taking the time to inspect it closely. You never know what you might find. Whether you're a seasoned collector or a newcomer to the hobby, the thrill of discovering a valuable coin is something that can't be beaten. In conclusion, if you find a 1943 Jefferson nickel that's in great condition, or perhaps even one with a minting error, you could be holding onto a coin that's worth an impressive $87,000. So, the next time you're looking through your spare change or digging through your coin collection, keep an eye out for this gem. It might just turn out to be your next big find. Today, in this video, we're going to take a deep dive into one of the most intriguing and valuable coins of the modern era, the 1987 Jefferson nickel. This coin, while seemingly ordinary at first glance, can actually hold significant value for the right collector. So, if you've ever wondered if your collection might have a hidden treasure, stick around to find out more. Let's start by talking a little bit about the Jefferson nickel and its history. This iconic coin was first introduced by the U.S. Mint in 1938 and has been circulating ever since. The Jefferson nickel features the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, on the obverse, and on the reverse, you'll find an image of Monticello, his home in Virginia. These two images have remained the hallmark of the coin for decades, but as you'll soon see, there's a lot more to the story of the 1987 Jefferson nickel than meets the eye. Now, let's zoom in on the 1987 Jefferson Nickel specifically. The year 1987 might seem like a relatively recent one for a coin to hold great value, but the truth is, there are a number of factors that can cause a coin to become highly prized by collectors. Most 1987 Jefferson nickels were minted using the standard nickel-copper composition, 75% copper and 25% nickel. However, what sets this particular year apart from other years in the Jefferson Nickel series is a mix of factors that make it an interesting and potentially valuable piece for collectors. For one, 1987 was part of a series of coins made with a special focus on mint quality. In the mid to late 1980s, the U.S. Mint was honing its production techniques, and the 1987 Jefferson Nickels are widely regarded as a high-quality series. However, not all coins minted in this period were created equal. Some 1987 nickels have certain characteristics that make them rare and highly sought after, especially if they were minted with some unique features. You might be wondering, what could make the 1987 Jefferson Nickel stand out from the millions that were produced? Well, there are several key factors that influence a coin's value, and one of the biggest factors is mint errors. If a coin was struck with an incorrect die, wrong metal mixture, or even minor design flaws, those errors can make the coin significantly more valuable than its ordinary counterpart. One of the most common errors to look for in 1987 Jefferson nickels is what's known as the double die error. This occurs when the coin is struck multiple times during the minting process, leading to an image that appears doubled on the coin. This can happen with the date, the wording, or even the image of Jefferson himself. Coins with this error are considered extremely valuable to collectors, as they're rare and highly desirable. Finding a 1987 Jefferson nickel with a double die can greatly increase its worth, often to the point where it's worth much more than its face value. In addition to mint errors, the condition of the coin also plays a massive role in determining its value. A coin's grade is one of the most important factors when determining its market price. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. Coins in mint state, or those that are still in excellent condition, fetch higher prices. If your 1987 Jefferson nickel has sharp, clear details, no noticeable wear, and has been kept in great condition, it will be worth a lot more than a coin that has been heavily circulated and worn down over the years. Another factor to consider is the demand for the coin in the market. The 1987 Jefferson nickel is relatively easy to find in circulation, but certain error versions or coins in exceptional condition are rare, and the market for them is growing. This increases the value of the coin, especially as collectors and investors are constantly on the lookout for coins that could be worth a significant amount of money down the line. It's important to understand that while the 1987 Jefferson nickel isn't rare in general, coins in the right condition or with mint errors can attract attention from serious collectors. In fact, when you come across a 1987 Jefferson nickel that has some of these unique features, its value can quickly skyrocket. That's what makes coins like this so exciting. While the coin itself may look like any other nickel at first, a careful inspection could reveal a valuable treasure hiding within. So, how much can a 1987 Jefferson nickel be worth? If you have a mint error coin or one in pristine condition, you could be looking at a substantial value. While most 1987 Jefferson nickels are worth just a few cents above face value, there have been reports of error coins and well-preserved specimens fetching as much as $75,000 at auction. That's right, $75,000 for a coin that you may have once overlooked as just another piece of change. Now, let's wrap things up by highlighting some tips on how to find out if you have one of these valuable coins. If you suspect your 1987 Jefferson nickel might be worth more than face value, here are a few steps you can take to assess its worth. Inspect the coin for minting errors. Look for double die errors or other unusual features that set your coin apart from the standard 1987 nickel. Check the condition. A mint state coin or one with little wear will be more valuable than a heavily circulated coin. Get it graded. If you think your 1987 Jefferson nickel might be worth something special, take it to a professional coin grader for evaluation. They'll be able to tell you if it's in good enough condition or if it contains a minting error that will raise its value. In the end, the world of coin collecting is full of surprises. You may have a rare and valuable coin right in front of you and not even know it. Whether it's a 1987 Jefferson nickel with a minting error or one in perfect condition, it could be worth far more than you'd expect. So, the next time you're going through your coins, be sure to give the 1987 Jefferson Nickel a second look. You never know what kind of treasure might be hiding in your collection. Today, we have a fascinating topic that might just be hiding in your pocket change: the 1975 Jefferson Nickel. You may be thinking, isn't that just a regular nickel? Well, it might surprise you to learn that 1975 Jefferson nickels can actually hold significant value, especially for those in pristine condition or with rare errors. So grab your magnifying glass, because today, we're diving deep into what makes the 1975 Jefferson Nickel special, how to spot valuable ones, and what kind of price they might fetch on the market. Let's start by discussing the Jefferson Nickel in general. This nickel, first introduced in 1938, features the profile of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, on the obverse, with an image of Monticello, his historic home, on the reverse. These iconic images have been a staple of the U.S. Mint for decades, but what you might not know is that while most Jefferson nickels look quite similar, there are certain years, like 1975, that can be surprisingly valuable to the right collector. You see, the 1975 Jefferson nickel might seem like an ordinary coin at first glance, but there are a number of factors that make it worth far more than its face value. Let's go over some key aspects that could drive the value of a 1975 Jefferson nickel up and make it an attractive investment for collectors. First and foremost, we need to talk about the minting process of the 1975 coin. Like many other coins produced during this time, the 1975 Jefferson nickels were struck at several U.S. mint facilities, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. It's important to note that most of the 1975 Jefferson nickels are common, mass-produced coins, and they don't hold much more value than their face value unless they have specific characteristics or errors that make them rare, but the magic happens when we look closer and consider mint errors. Minting errors, such as die cracks, off-center strikes, or even double dies, can significantly boost a coin's value. In fact, if you happen to come across a 1975 Jefferson nickel with one of these errors, it could be worth far more than you might expect. Mint errors are highly sought after by collectors because they are incredibly rare, and coins with these errors often fetch a premium in the market. Let's talk about one of the most exciting types of minting errors that can make the 1975 Jefferson nickel extremely valuable: double die errors. A double die occurs when the coin is struck more than once, which results in a blurry or doubled image on the coin. This error can happen with the date, words, or even the image of Jefferson himself. A 1975 Jefferson nickel with a double die error could be worth significantly more than one without the mistake. Coins with such errors can fetch thousands of dollars at auction, and collectors actively hunt for these anomalies. Next, let's touch on coin condition, another crucial factor in determining the worth of your 1975 Jefferson nickel. If the coin is in pristine condition, it will naturally command a higher price. A coin's grade is determined by how well preserved it is, and coins that have little to no wear, sharp details, and no scratches or marks will always be valued higher. Many 1975 Jefferson nickels have been heavily circulated over the years, but if you happen to have one in near-perfect condition, you could be sitting on a valuable find. Grading is a highly detailed process, and coins are rated on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect coin. A coin in mint state 65 or higher is typically considered to be in excellent condition and will command a higher value. If you're lucky enough to have a 1975 Jefferson nickel that's graded in the MS-65 or MS-66 range, you're looking at a substantial increase in value, even if it doesn't have a mint error. Now that we've covered the basics of mint errors and coin condition, let's talk about the market demand for the 1975 Jefferson nickel. The demand for coins is largely driven by collectors who are passionate about adding rare and valuable pieces to their collections. The Jefferson Nickel series is one of the most collected U.S. coin series, and the 1975 version is no exception. Even without mint errors, a well-preserved or low-mintage 1975 nickel can be highly coveted, but the real excitement comes when you find a 1975 Jefferson nickel that ticks all the boxes: excellent condition, rare minting errors, or limited mintage. At that point, your nickel could easily be worth much more than the average nickel. And when we're talking about rare coins, some can fetch astronomical prices. So, how much can a 1975 Jefferson nickel be worth? Well, depending on the condition, mint errors, and collector demand, these coins have been known to fetch impressive prices at auctions. While most 1975 Jefferson nickels are still worth their face value, coins with rare mint errors or those in exceptional condition can easily reach values in the thousands of dollars. A 1975 Jefferson nickel in perfect condition, free from any wear or tarnish, could be worth anywhere from a few $100s to even more, depending on its rarity and appeal to collectors. However, the most exciting news is that if you happen to have one with a minting error, such as a double die or off-center strike, you could see the price soar to a stunning $77,500 at auction. That's right, $77,500 for a 1975 Jefferson nickel with the right characteristics. It might seem unbelievable, but rare coins with the right features can command incredible prices in the world of numismatics. That's what makes coin collecting so thrilling. Sometimes, you can stumble upon a rare and valuable coin without even realizing it, and when you do, it can be a game changer for your collection or investment. So, how do you find out if your 1975 Jefferson nickel is one of the valuable ones? Here are a few tips. Examine your coin closely for any minting errors, such as doubled images, die cracks, or off-center strikes. These errors could significantly increase the value of your coin. Check the condition of your coin. If it's still in excellent shape, with sharp details and no noticeable wear, it could be worth more than you think. Get your coin graded by a professional numismatist. Grading experts can tell you exactly how much your coin is worth and whether it has any special features. Remember, coin collecting is about more than just having a hobby, it's about uncovering hidden treasures. A single coin can sometimes change your financial future, and the 1975 Jefferson nickel is a perfect example of that. If you're lucky enough to have a 1975 Jefferson nickel with a minting error or in pristine condition, you could be looking at a value of $71,000. That's right, $71,000 could be yours with the right coin in your collection. Thanks for tuning in to today's video. If you enjoyed learning about the 1975 Jefferson nickel and how it could be worth a fortune, don't forget to like and subscribe for more coin-related content. We've got plenty more valuable coins to talk about, so stay tuned for future videos. Until next time, keep searching your change. Your next rare coin might just be waiting for you.